It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
All right, people, don't freak out. I'm sitting a little lower than usual. I'm not wearing a jacket. We're an hour earlier than we usually are, although we're 3 minutes later than we anticipated that we were going to start. And I'm sitting here with one of the breast men in all of the political sports world. Clay Travis, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. I was getting yelled at by a Cuban Uber driver on the way over here, so I apologize for being 3 minutes late. He was asking me advice on how to get around Miami traffic, I think.
Wait,
I had no idea what to
was
tell him.
asking you how to get through the traffic?
Yes. He was in really desperate straits, I think, that he was demanding that I have some opinion on this. So, yes, I'm excited to be here. Congratulations on the new badass studio. This is really cool. This is very well done.
Well, you're building like 27 studios yourself. Right?
We're building one right now in Nashville, but I was thinking about this on the drive out here. The first time I did your show was 2017 in your LA studio. And I can't believe it's been 7 years since then. And if anything, the world has gotten crazier. That's like 8 studios away from me. The world has gotten much, much worse than that. Yes, but it's good to see you again. And congrats on all this and all the success.
It's good to see you, brother. Last time we did this live, actually, was here in Miami at the local studio.
That's
we did it over tequila.
That's right.
It's a little early.
For some tequila. Yeah,
Okay.
I got coffee. I think you've got coffee, but I don't think there's any alcohol in this.
All right, so we're going to dive into all the usual stuff. We're just catching up on a whole bunch of things that have happened over the last couple days with Clay. And well, let's start. I wanted to start actually with a video from 2 months ago. So this is from July, right after Kamala took over for Joe Biden. Remember that whole coup thing? They got rid of the old guy. And this is Bill Maher. You'll see Shapiro's on there as well. But Bill Maher hitting Kamala on a bunch of stuff. And then you'll see why we're setting up the show with this. Take a look.
And as a former prosecutor, Kamala was putting criminals in jail back before liberals decided that was a bad thing. And now that CVS is locking the shaving cream behind plexiglass, Democrats are coming around to her again. Harris would be the first woman president, first black woman president, and first Asian president. But I don't vote for who will be the first. I vote for who will win. And for whatever reason, Harris has never been popular. You can count the number of delegates she won in the 2020 primaries on one hand, as long as that hand has no fingers. In 3 years as vice president, she's been quieter than an electric car. And like an electric car, your MAGA uncle can't explain why she fills him with homicidal rage. She just does. Sometimes life isn't fair. It's not fair that she's not popular. She's intelligent and accomplished, and in fact was put in charge of the border. And look at how... Okay, bad example.
All right, so Clay, there was a reason I wanted to show an old clip to start the show, which is it seems to me Bill's going to end up voting for her. Yeah, he's good on the woke stuff and all that, fine. My audience hears about that all the time. It seems to me that nobody, whether it's the few sane liberals that are left that are going to vote Dem or the crazy people, nobody knows why they're voting for her other than she's not Trump. And I think that's a pretty freaking low bar.
Yeah, look, I think it's actually a really clarifying thing. You know that I'm a big sports fan, by the way. Saw your basketball court that you've read. That's pretty cool out there, right? What stands out to me is I think Kamala is a Democrat -3 to 5. That means as a stand-in, right? She's 3 to 5 points worse than what they could do at the upper margin if they had a good candidate. If she wins, and what I like about sports is every week, for instance, in football, we get a new data point. Here, we just argue about whether the polls are accurate or not until we find out on November 5th or November 12th or whatever it's going to be.
We have no data points.
That's right.
Other than a lot of people are stupid.
That's right. But to me, if Kamala can win, then Republicans have to go back and say, let's re-examine everything, because she's a far worse candidate than Hillary in 2016. she's a far worse candidate than Biden in 2020. If she can win, and she's nowhere near what Barack Obama was, certainly in 2008, but even in 2012, if she can win, it means that they have designed a mousetrap that is so much better than the Republican mousetrap that we have to go back. And you'll appreciate this. When I sold Outkick 3 years ago to Fox, I was kind of I'm sitting around thinking about this a lot now. There's basically two ways to build media companies. One is brand, right? Like, you built a brand. People care about what you think. I like to think that I've built a brand. But there's also people who are just...
And for an awful lot of money, so I think you did all right.
But there's also people who go in and basically reverse engineer what the internet wants. Back in the day, BuzzFeed knew better than anybody what Facebook was going to do. In sports, Bleacher Report basically knew what people were searching for on Google, and they just refined. So they didn't build a brand. They peeled back the head of the internet and figured it all out. It seems to me that Democrats have pulled back the head of the internet, the voting electorate. If Kamala can win, they have built a better mousetrap than Republicans, and the brand doesn't even matter as much as insert generic candidate here and we can win, whether it's Fetterman in Pennsylvania, whether it was Biden in 20, and now Kamala in 24.
It's actually a scary point, because you're basically saying it doesn't matter where they stand on the issues. It's just the machinery and trickery behind it. It's actually a great segue to this clip. So now, the reason I started with an old Bill Maher clip was Bret Stephens, who's the New York Times quote-unquote conservative, but will not support Trump. He was on Real Time this weekend with Stephanie Ruhle. She's an MSNBC person. And watch what happens here as it relates to who the conservative will vote for.
I'm an undecided voter. I'm never going to vote for Trump, but I'm not sure I want to vote for Kamala. And my fear is that she doesn't really have a very good command of what she wants to do as president. It would be great for her to sit down with you or George Stephanopoulos or you, Stephanie, and get a succession
As
of...
if she'd sit down with me.
Why not? Ask her, you know, look, George W. Bush, 25 years ago, was asked if he could name the president of Pakistan and other people. He had no idea, and people said this guy has no command of foreign policy, and it turned out to be a prescient set of questions. It's not too much to ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
So it's unclear to me how there could be an informed...
The problem that a lot of people have with Kamala is we don't know her answer to anything, okay?
But you know his answer to everything.
And that's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person you're supposed to vote for.
We should have had Clay and I just in a separate box in there, because we're both smacking our heads at the exact same time.
I know.
So the reason I wanted to show that clip is sort of the reverse of what we were talking about before, where it's the Democrat voter that just needs the machine. Bret is brought on there. Again, he's a New York Times conservative, so that basically means he's not really a conservative. But basically saying he will not vote for Trump under any circumstances, but in essence could vote for her. How is it possible you could be remotely conservative, believe in capitalism, believe that boys and girls are different, believe that you should have a border, or anything that would make sense to us, and perhaps vote for Kamala Harris?
I don't even understand what the fear of Trump is. and I mean as a logical, analytical, reasonably rational, and I like to think somewhat intelligent adult.
I think it's parties. I think that's the answer. You don't go to the parties that he wants to go to in New York and LA.
Oh, that's certainly true, right?
I don't go to them either.
And if I have to walk into a party and apologize for who I'm voting for president, that sounds like the worst party ever. Unless it's P. Diddy's party, but who knows what's going on
we'll
there.
Get to that.
We'll
get
to that in a little bit. But I honestly, so the last time I saw Trump in person, Buck and I, we do the show. We interviewed Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Both of our wives were there. When we finished, Trump said, hey, you guys have to hang on, like gave his finger wave, and he said, make sure we get these kids milkshakes for their drive back to Miami. We have the best milkshakes in Mar-a-Lago, right? And I have now been fortunate, I'm sure you have too, to meet Trump a lot of times. And the idea that he is Hitler is the most ridiculously absurd argument ever. And so if you want to argue on policy, hey, I think he's going to hire people that aren't very good at being attorney general or being secretary of state, that would be an argument you could make. Sure. I think that would be a valid criticism of Trump. He wants to have a more secure border. He wants lower crime. He wants to avoid war all around the world and keep our soldiers safe.
And there's a track record of doing it.
Him having done it.
Yeah.
He gave up power and left the White House. So if he's going to overthrow democracy, why didn't he try to do it last time when he was actually already in the office of the presidency? I legitimately just sit around and say, other than your own insecurities and intellectual failures, there is no evidence that Trump is actually a danger. If COVID doesn't happen, I'm not sure America has ever been stronger than we were in February of 2020. Yeah. When I was down here in Miami getting ready for the Super Bowl, everything was great. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, everybody was making more money. I don't see the great fear associated with Trump. And oh, by the way, this time, he's done in 4 years, and you're going to be running a new candidate by January of 27. Everybody knows the 2028 presidential race is going to have started.
When Trump got elected, and I didn't vote for him the first time, I don't think
didn't
he did either. Right, so we both have a similar trajectory on that, and then obviously voted for him last time.
Yes.
We'll vote for him this time. But the day after he got elected, I did a video at that first house that you came to the studio. My studio was being built, so I just had to do a video on my computer with crappy Wi-Fi, basically saying, look, I didn't support the guy, but if some of his policies are good, I'm not going to be screaming he's Hitler or any of this stuff, because it's not what you do to him, it's what you do to yourself. You paint yourself in a corner. And I think that's where these guys are at. You can't be screaming for 7 years, the guy's Hitler, and then suddenly be like, Hitler, kind of good,
look, I mean, Kamala Harris, to the extent that she has given us policies, is wrong on everything that I care about. Everything. And by the way, if you're a single issue voter, and I bet you would be in this camp with me, if I only had to pick one thing to care about, it's that everybody should be able to say everything that they believe publicly without fear of censorship from the United States government and larger big tech companies. That by itself, to me, is reason enough to vote for Trump, just so we can have a truly robust marketplace of ideas.
So we'll get to more on censorship in a minute. You are a white guy, correct?
I am, so far as I know.
A white guy.
I tan well. Don't
worry, we're not going to have a struggle session here. But check out this clip. This is from CNN. Oh, by the way, I broke a glass this morning.
Oh my goodness! I saw that. I was like, "Is this a parenting injury or what happened?"
There was blood.
By the way, that's a pretty fancy Band-Aid that you're rolling with there. That's a Miami cool guy Band-Aid. That's not the old school look.
We'll give you a couple Band-Aids on the way out. So on CNN 2 days ago, this is just incredible, and I need you're a white guy.
Yeah,
I need you to comment on this.
Yes,
there is a group. It's White Dudes for Harris.
Oh yeah, I watched this.
And they had their leader, the leader of White Dudes for Harris, who if it was White Dudes for Trump, you'd say he's a neo-Nazi, but this is White Dudes for Harris. Here he is making his pitch for other white dudes to join the movement on CNN.
Yeah, for far too long, the left has essentially ceded white men to the MAGA right. And a thing that we know is that most men, especially most white men, aren't actually MAGA supporters. And so we decided that we wanted to create space for white men to be a part of electing Vice President Harris.
So that's what white dudes are all about. Clay, what's with the... I can ask this several different ways. One version of it would be, what's with the general demeanor of these people? This sort of low testosterone, asexual, weird thing that associates them with Trump.
So a couple of things here. One, I think White Dudes for Harris actually moves white, black, Asian, and Hispanic dudes all to Trump.
Exactly.
If we were trying to make an argument for what group you don't want to be in, I think that guy made it on CNN.
Right. Is there a white guy watching that like, yes, okay, I'm in.
Well, Second, did you see the NPR testosterone study?
Oh, I did.
Where,
yes.
I mean, I do think there is some truth to this, that the lower level of testosterone you have, the more likely you are to respond to some of the arguments of the Democrat Party, which effectively has become the party of crazy women. I mean, let's be honest, in many ways. But look, to me, when I see that, we had a reader emailed in, a listener emailed in, and said, you know what's funny? You could never have a white dudes for anything other than Kamala because it would be considered racist or KKK or whatever else. I am cautiously optimistic that what we are seeing is white, black, Asian, and Hispanic men just saying enough. But we can argue about what the tax rate on corporations should be. We can't argue about whether dudes should be able to pretend to be women and win a women's championship, right? And I think men, I can curse, right? I think men are just over the bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, it is just stop the bullshit. There are so many crazy things that the Kamala Harris team argues for that I don't even think they believe. I saw a stat this morning from Axios. It said only 2% of people, 3% of Democrats actually believe in defund the police, right? People say a lot of things publicly that they would never actually support privately. And to me, that's an interesting test,
well,
right?
it gets to that social status thing we talked about before the parties. Nobody really believes it, but they're all along for the ride, and the other guy's all evil. So it doesn't matter what you believe in.
That's right.
Way.
And as soon as you are willing to say something publicly that you don't actually believe privately, to me, especially for us in the media, why would anybody ever trust us on anything? Like, I can speak for you. I think I speak for myself. I legitimately, the thing I care about the most is being able to say exactly what I think. And as soon as I'm not able to say exactly what I think, I'm out, right? I'll throw my phone in the ocean and I'll just go chill on the beach after selling Outkick. And I can honestly say that every time I'm more honest, I feel like the audience grows because there's such a desperate craving for authenticity. And I think so many people out there, whether it's politics, whether it's freaking sports, whether it's just larger cultural issues, know that they're being lied to. And they don't even have to agree with you. They just want to believe, hey, that guy or that gal is saying what they really think. And it's so rare. You, me, Buck, Megan, there's like 15 people that actually say on a daily basis, I think, what they actually believe in media. Well, and those people are winning, I think.
That's why I've always enjoyed watching your trajectory in a way, because I'm always interested, like the purely political people don't interest me that much. Like, it's just like, oh, they 72 people voted for this. But the people who are like not purely political that then get hit in the head with something and then start waking up. So we'll get to the thing that you got hit in the head with in just a second. But I want to, speaking of people who say things they don't believe, check out Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She is one of the worst. I don't give her enough credit for being one of the worst Democrats out there. But look at her, here she is trying to be cool.
I'm here with volunteers and they're cooking with gas. This slaps hell up. My house party just slayed. I'm calling voters today, rizzing them up. Trump wants to ship union jobs overseas. Not chill. This is gas. Trump wants to cut taxes for billionaires. I'm leaving the chat. No cap. I'm Swiftie AF. It's giving the next president.
Clay, I don't think we really have to overanalyze this. Suffice to say, that's like, it's just perfect. They are all becoming exactly what they are, which is nothing in a weird way. They are just nothings that exist.
My boys are old enough that I will use that language just to drive them insane. I'll brag about my Riz.
The drip today.
I mean, look at this shirt. There's probably women just throwing their underwear right now at the camera. Let's be honest. I will, drop their lingo, and it just drives them insane. And what I really love to do is in front of one of their friends do it, right? I am concerned that we are basically moving towards, in the social media era, where we don't even have debates anymore. Each candidate just picks their favorite emoticon, and we decide which has the better emoticon, right? I do think young teenage boys, recognize the BS more than young teenage girls do. But I'm hopeful, if you look at the gender divide, it's fascinating. 18 to 29-year-olds have a bigger gender divide than any group in America right now between what boys and girls are thinking. And I think boys are kind of getting more sane, and I think that girls are getting more insane. And I wonder how that's going to reconcile itself going forward, because most people, in order to try to appeal to somebody of the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on whatever they're trying to do, does things that make them more likable, right? And so I wonder how these genders are going to come together when the boys are like, hey, I love Andrew Tate, and the girls are like, whatever you think about Andrew Tate, and the girls are like, hey, I love Gretchen Whitmer. Like, there's a big gap there, right, between the two.
Do you know, have you ever heard me talk about my blowjob theory of politics? My blowjob theory,
yes.
You're going to be on board with this theory, I guarantee you. But my blowjob theory is that there's a lot of women who have this sort of Trump derangement type thing. They've had it forever. It sort of goes to the difference between men and women thing that you're talking about. And that there's a certain amount of men who just want a blowjob. It actually doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or anything else, that guys just like blowjobs. There is no guy on earth who doesn't, oh no, sorry, I've had enough of those, right? And what happens is the women basically bludgeon them with this stuff. Oh, you're going to vote for Trump? Or we're going to get into a political argument, you're not getting a blowjob tonight, and then they end up becoming these sort of soy boy, low T. That's why they like their men emasculated, or why we see all these articles about guys who work out are far right.
You know what's funny is I don't even think women like men who they can bully, right? In that way.
Not in reality.
But I think there's a lot of truth to that, and I think it depends on what city you're in. Right? I think if you're in New York City, you got to pretend to be a libertarian. You got to pretend to be a non-Trump guy to get your dick sucked. I think that sometimes happens, right?
Maybe we should bust out the tequila.
But that's why I think it's so fascinating to contemplate. A lot of these guys are just done pretending. And I do wonder, you know, the data reflects that married women tend to move more towards the men than the men move towards the women, right? You become more conservative. You want to pay lower taxes. You want lower mortgage rates. You want your family taken care of. You care more about crime. And right now, the Democrat Party has basically become the party that only cares about abortion. And that seems to be driving so much of this young women angle. And look, I understand guys who are like 24 and they're like, I don't want to have a kid when I'm 24. But you've gone through the process of having kids. I've gone through the process of having 3 with my wife, obviously. And that changes your thought process in many ways. You know, seeing a sonogram, seeing like that whole process. I care about abortion. Like it's like the 10th most important thing to me. I think what is difficult is now that it's all gone back to the states, this whole argument that the world was going to fall apart if Roe v. Wade got overturned has just not materialized. And so they've got to constantly hit fear and emotion to try to terrify these girls in order to get out and vote. Well, like that otherwise it's going to be like, what's the television show that, you know, that they
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale.
Well, that's why it's so twisted what they've done, because even at the debates where Trump goes out of his way, I'm not for a national abortion ban, which was the whole point of the reversal of Roe v. Wade. And they just keep saying he's for it. So you're right. It's where women seem to put abortion, or a huge percentage of women put abortion at the top of that hierarchy, where I think in reality it shouldn't be there, no matter how much you care about abortion or women's rights or whatever, like the state of the border or economy, et cetera. But let's jump over, because we're talking about some crazy Democrats. On CNN, you know their thing, and this is what happens on all mainstream media. It's always 5 Democrats or progressives versus 1 Republican. So here's an interesting clip of Congresswoman Nancy Mace, Republican, going against, well, the orgy of insanity. Go.
Kamala's.
You had it right. You almost got it.
I will say Kamala's name any way that I want to.
No,
but
you mispronounced her and you also misjudged her.
I just did, and I'll do it again.
Mispronouncing her name. That's a refusal to acknowledge her humanity.
If
I purposely mispronounced your name, that would not be appropriate.
Policies are Joe Biden's policies. She owns it.
You're normalizing that kind of viciousness, man.
33 times.
She was the
vice president on Joe Biden's bill. She was 33 times the deciding vote on Joe Biden's bills.
There's just so much there, as always. First off, it's always 5-on-1. Right?
Yes.
So they're putting like something subtle in people's brains that's how the country operates. But then Michael Eric Dyson, who has been owned on 1 million TV shows, he says you're normalizing this kind of viciousness by mispronouncing Kamala's name.
Yeah.
These are the same people who call Trump Hitler and a fascist every day. mirror. Just, can we buy these people a mirror? That's what I'm always wondering. Can
Well,
we just
and
mass send
also,
out mirrors?
they don't even believe it, which is what we're going to lay out here.
Yeah.
Even, this goes to your dick suck theory in many ways, but I
call it the blowjob theory, but dick suck theory has a little more like punch to it. You guys can use that. Yeah.
But so when you look at what he's doing, one of my good buddies back in high school said, "Man, you know what? I don't see race." I was like, "Oh, it's interesting." He's a black guy. Said, "I only see hot." And I don't know, we were like 15 or 16, like years old at the time. And the older I've gotten, the more brilliant that has become to me, because I think if you are a normal guy, and you can tell me the gay guy perspective, because I obviously don't know that one, but I really don't.
Without protest too much. Come on.
Well, I do think Bill Malugin, you see me talking about how incredibly attractive he is.
Oh, yeah, you love that Bill Malugin.
He's a really good-looking man. But I have to say, I still at this age notice whether a woman's attractive or not before I notice what her race is. The attractiveness strikes me or doesn't strike me.
Of course, if there's a hot girl walking by you in the street, or what, doesn't even matter. That's what you're attracted
That's
to.
how men are
You don't then
wired.
suddenly be like, race, we better.
That's right. Yeah. And this is what's funny about this. The next step was he doesn't even believe what he's arguing.
So let's jump ahead for a second. So he's pretending basically, she's mean, and in essence,
she's racist because she mispronounced Kamala's name.
That's of course the subtext to the whole thing. So now check this out. The very next day at Congress, here's Nancy Mace showing screenshots of what Michael Eric Dyson was texting to her immediately after that hit.
I would like to also enter into the record a screenshot of a text message I received from the esteemed professor from Vanderbilt, Michael Eric Dyson, after my CNN interview, begged me for photos. In this text, he says, after calling me racist on CNN, "Shh, don't tell anybody, we look good together," and sent me a kissy emoji.
Without
then
objection.
the guy says I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't think he's that bent out of shape on how anyone pronounces Kamala. And if we're going to have that standard, you got to hold it to both sides, not just one or the other.
That's it. It's just perfect, right? It's just a perfect example of what they are. They don't believe anything they're saying. These calls are just meaningless. And that's what you do. That is what you do.
And did you see his tweet reacting to this?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, that part. See if somebody can pull it up.
We can pull that up.
He called her racist again, said this was white women's tears, that she was mendacious. And I would have just felt so much better if he had said, she's a good-looking woman.
Yeah, she's hot.
I'm a single guy, and I shot my shot, and she didn't like me. I think I could have cured her of the racism.
Right.
That would have actually been really funny. I would have kind of laughed about it. Instead, he doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on the fact that she was racist. But it ties in with my guys don't see race, they see hot. She's a good-looking woman,
She's
right?
hot.
She's single.
She's hot, yeah.
Especially for a congresswoman. She's one of the hottest congresswomen out there.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him for saying hey, we look good together. He's a single guy, I think. What is the harm there? It actually makes me feel better about him in some ways. And then he just came back down with the fundamental inauthenticity associated with it.
Did you ever see the clip of him debating Jordan Peterson, and in the middle of it, he just stops because he's getting just demolished by Jordan, and he calls him a mean old white man. And it's like, dude, you've just got nothing.
Well, he goes on sports shows.
Yeah.
He would. Oh, yeah. He's been on a bunch to say that the Colin Kaepernick story is indicative of how racist American sports are. And
I thought you
all
meant
these
sports, talking about sports. But
no. Just to say that everybody's
right, I think we do have the tweet
look at
here.
this. Have you seen this tweet? Read it.
So the ridiculous lies told by Nancy Mace in the effort to smear my name because her anger at being checked for her insensitive disregard for VP. I had no intent with her to do anything but be nice, and her white woman's tears and mendacity are all in the service of lies and distortions. I was wrong about one thing. She is a bigot. I mean, it's so disgusting and thin, and people, I'm talking to the camera for a second, just stop playing their game.
How much funnier would it have been from him to be like, I got shot down, doesn't mean she isn't hot.
Yeah.
I could have definitely cured her of the racism. Oh, well. That's funny. I would have laughed. Instead, white women's tears, racist and a bigot. You don't even believe that. How many racist and bigots does he want to go to dinner with? and text with. Come on.
Clay, you're giving me a perfect segue here because Clay Travis, years ago, before I knew Clay Travis,
that's right,
went on CNN and actually said something true, and it was very upsetting to the host.
To do with sports, and they said, look, you can't have this opinion. It's too conservative. We're not going to allow it. I think that's a bad move. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I believe in only two things completely, the First Amendment and boobs. And so once they made the decision that they were not going to allow a conservative, non-sports related commentary, they couldn't do it. Hold on.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly as a woman anchoring the show. Did you say, what did you just say? You believe in the First Amendment and BWBS?
Boobs. Two things that have only never let me down in this entire country's history, the First Amendment and boobs. So those are the only two things I believe in absolutely in the country. And
I love that clip. We've played it 1,000 times. I like watching you watch the clip because
you know what's funny about that?
You're still proud of yourself.
It's still a funny clip, and I mean, I think it was emblematic of how you can never apologize to an inauthentic emotion.
Yeah.
I've been married 20 years. Trust me, I've apologized plenty, right? Like anybody who's been married for that long.
Yeah.
But not for something that is manufactured outrage, which is what that was.
Her career's over. As a woman, because women have different
as a woman, right? And also, the other funny thing about that is the black guy that was on the other side of me there, he acted like he was offended. And then in the immediate aftermath of that clip, it turned out he had tons of tweets about what an ass man he was, which is absolutely hysterical, which again goes to people pretend to be something that they are not. And first of all, that seems exhausting, right?
Yeah,
to have to run around and claim like, oh, I get offended. And the other funny thing about this is, a few months later, Hugh Hefner died. That's not the funny part. But CNN covered him as a legend who has been more of a First Amendment and boobs guy than Hugh Hefner.
Right.
The entire purpose of Playboy magazine, ostensibly, was so people could read the articles. It was a full embrace of the First Amendment and boobs, which is the foundation at that time of a multi-$100 million empire. And the way that they covered him, I just thought was very interesting relative to how they covered me. What they wanted me to do was get on my knees and apologize. And I honestly think if I had done that, I don't know where I would be today.
Oh no, you would not be here.
Correct.
I actually mean literally here, but figuratively as well. I then had you on the show, I think a week later.
That's right.
Because it became this crazy thing, and you ran with it and ran in the right direction when a lot of people actually.
And the reality is, as soon as you apologize, they don't actually want an apology. They want to devalue your ability to make an argument. And when you apologize, the audience that would have otherwise supported you walks. The people who didn't like you then don't suddenly say, oh, you know what, I'll reconsider. Maybe this is a really good dude after all. Right. It's not about that at all. It's about diminishing and attacking you. And I'm not saying I'll never apologize for anything that I say publicly. Maybe I'll screw up at some point. I do a lot of live TV, a lot of live radio. But so far, I never have. And so I think the idea of giving false apology has become so commonplace that the fact that I own this, a lot of people were like, hell yeah, even if they don't even particularly agree.
Radical theory. How about only apologize if you actually did something wrong?
Correct.
Crazy?
I know.
But you've given me another perfect segue, because when they're not lying about you, the other thing they want to do is silence you. This is a video from a couple days ago. It's AOC talking about how she wants to make sure that they can censor you on social media.
You know, I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
Clay, I'm not kidding. She should be kicked out of Congress. At some point, when your oath of office, you swear on the Bible, although some of them swear on some other stuff, that your oath of office is to protect the Constitution of the United States. She is completely saying there that she wants to shred the Constitution of the United States. And it's not just her. We now, Gavin Newsom with this parity law that he just signed in California. We hear this from Kamala Harris. We've heard it from multiple Democrats. And by the way, they're the ones that have been spreading most of the misinformation, COVID, Trump's Nazi, et cetera.
Totally. And this is, to me, a single issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I will vote for Trump. I can't wait to go vote early. I encourage everybody to go vote early. But this is the issue. Because if you can't have a full-throated, rigorous, vigorous debate about issues, then we don't have freedom in America. And I'll give you a prediction. If Kamala wins, I think that she will arrest Elon Musk at some point over the next 4 years.
I don't think that that's too off the rails, actually. Whether arrest outright or just put him under so much pressure, basically do what they've done to Trump.
Yes.
Keep him in courts all the time, try to destroy his businesses and everything else. That does.
I think that squares, and I give credit to Elon, who I've never met. I know you've had him several times on your show, but it's so interesting to me that he has connected the future fate of civilization with free speech. Because if he wants to put people on Mars or he wants people walking in space, he recognizes that you can't curtail the ability of the American spirit and certainly world free speech. Because, and this is my thing that I've always believed about China, ultimately I think the United States will triumph over China, and I think we're now doing that. Like the China seems to be receding, their economy's in trouble. But because they don't allow their people the full fruition of ideas, it means they don't have the creatively dynamic conflict of ideas, which creates new things. Like I would say about you,
ingenuity.
That's right.
Yeah.
You and I are good examples of people who had one opinion, and then the world shifts, and we conflict. We're willing to reconsider some of our opinions, and I think we've ended up in a better, truer place than we would have been if we hadn't been exposed to the entire panoply of ideas and concepts. And I think this is why you ultimately see so few people like AOC or Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom when he debated Ron DeSantis. We know what they think.
Yeah.
You and I could sit here and make an AOC argument as well or better than AOC herself could if we were being, like when I was a lawyer, I was just an advocate. I could advocate for something I didn't believe in because that's what I'm paid to do as a lawyer. I'm supposed to advocate for my client. If she were my client, I could make an argument better for AOC than she could. I really believe that, or Gavin Newsom or any of these guys, I think I could. They don't know what we actually believe because they don't leave their world and actually contemplate the other side's opinions like we do. I read the New York Times every day for a reason. I read the Washington Post every day for a reason, so that I know exactly. I know. Buck watches. We make fun of it, but Buck watches Morning Joe, so he's aware of what their side is saying. I don't really think they have any concept for what we believe or what we are contemplating and discussing every day.
I think part of that is their ideas are just so damn thin. And to get to the point that you made about race and a hot woman walking down the street, their obsession with race has now just become so patently absurd that watch this clip of AOC in the House a couple days ago and explain to me how this has anything to do with race.
I now recognize Ms. Ocasio-Cortez from New York.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Days like today are really deeply felt. I'm going to speak briefly as the highest-ranking Latino or Latina on this committee. It does matter that that Vice President Harris was not the quote-unquote border czar.
Do you get what they just did there? That she has to announce that she's the highest ranking Latina. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that what they're debating is about Kamala being the border czar. And yes, Kamala was the border czar. I'm not making it up. AOC just lied. You might call that misinformation. We have the official White House document right there. It is underlined, H Resolution 253, whereas on March 24th, 2021, Vice President Kamala Harris was named border czar. Do you think, Clay, am I just a crazy conspiracy theorist, but do you think that maybe they want to silence us because the truth is on our side? Like, how does she have the balls to get up there and say that? Put aside the Latina thing.
Remember when she wore the all-white outfit and by the chain link fence was like crying over what was going on at the border? Honestly, I think this is the root toxicity of the Democrat Party's foundational lie now, and it goes across everywhere. I mean, I think you can connect it to Israel, right?
Yeah.
The reason why they can't admit that Israel was a victim of October 7th and has the right to defend itself is because they see Jews as white and they see Palestinians as brown,
It's as simple
right?
as that.
And that's all it is. And so when you have bought into the idea that white people are evil, which a huge percentage of the Democrat Party has, as a foundational element of your identity politics worldview, you don't have the facility to actually look and say, hey, let's analyze the facts here and determine who is good and who is evil in every individual circumstance. And this is really goes in, and I would tie it in with Me Too as well. Look, men lie, women lie, white people lie, black people lie, Asian people lie, Hispanic people lie. The idea that you are trying to determine truth based on the identity of a speaker is the antithesis of everything that America should stand for. And interestingly, my kids are in school now, they're reading To Kill a Mockingbird. They basically are adopting the anti-To Kill a Mockingbird strategy, right? Because the white woman is lying, the black man's telling the truth in that story.
Right.
They're now saying that that a black person couldn't be telling a lie and a white person has to be the liar, right? And that's why justice is blind. I'm not saying American justice is perfect. Certainly we've had many flaws, but we're moving towards more perfection where a jury can just consider someone on guilt or innocence, not based on the identity. And I'll give you one more analogy. It reminds me, anytime someone says as a, delete that part of their sentence. Because it actually reminds me of old school when people would say divine right of kings. When you have to preface your argument by establishing what your identity is, it actually, to me, diminishes the totality of your argument.
Well, if I was Latino, I would be offended by that.
Yes.
What she just said was, as a Latina,
Yes.
I'm now going to lie about whether Kamala was a border czar. So the implication is, so Latino people, I guess, lie about shit. And that's just nonsense.
Correct. And I think, again, I come back to, I think men are blowing this up. And I do believe if COVID hadn't happened, this might have gotten blown up in 2020. If Kamala wins, I think we're going to have 4 years of it, and then I think it'll get blown up in 28. But if Kamala loses, I think the Democrat Party is going to have to go back to the drawing board, as anyone who loses an election should, and say, what did we get wrong here? And I think what they're going to see is that their identity politics argument actually doesn't just turn off a lot of white voters. It turns off huge numbers of Asian, Hispanic, and black people.
Well, that's why I've been saying, I mean, we need a Trump landslide because they need to see that somehow you motherfuckers who all actually were the racists and the sexists and all that stuff, you guys brought Elon and RFK and Tulsi and Jordan Peterson and Clay Travis. You brought all of these people who should have nothing to do with each other in a sane political environment. You brought them all together. So if you want to see how absolutely insane everything is going right now, I don't know if we sent you this clip this morning. There is a clip that's going viral right now of a kid showing, I believe it's his mother, what Common Core math actually is. So you're going to see the mother doing a very simple math equation and then the Common Core version of it. And then we wonder why kids' brains are exploding. Watch this.
When I was in school, Lucas, all we did, add here, so this is going to be 13. I carry the 1. And I'll go 1 plus 4 is 5 plus 1 is 6. That's my answer.
Learn how you show how it's actually done.
How it's actually done. Okay.
These are the 10s and that's the 1s.
Okay.
4 times in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, that's...
And then 7 ones. And
Okay.
then 1 more 10.
Okay.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Wow.
11, 12, 14, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, this wants to be with its friends, so it goes up to 50 and then it counts 1 more up, so it will make 63. That's how you do it.
Okay, times have definitely changed.
All right, I'm not kidding. Next time you come on the show, we're doing the thing where we're in the box while we're showing these videos. That is one of the most insane things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I've seen other things about Common Core and how crazy it is.
Right.
But when you now see why so many young people's brains have been blown up, not just because of the gender stuff, but because of that. Like, you can see why Democrats want everybody in state schools and don't want school choice and don't want home learning, because people might start waking up and going, oh, you people are all bananas.
I had a driver a couple weeks ago who was doing homeschooling for his kids. Mm-hmm. And so my kids are all in normal school. I will say that I've got 3 boys, 16, 14, and 10. I've loved all their schools. Their teachers have been fantastic. I got no issues with...
For the record, you're in Tennessee. You're not in New York City or
That's right.
San Francisco.
But I had a driver recently, and he was walking me through his homeschool curriculum. And I said, how much time do your kids spend actually on the curriculum every day? He said 2.5 hours. And then he's like, and then they have the rest of the day to pursue whatever might interest them. And I said, man, kids go to school for 7 hours every day.
Yeah.
And he was walking me through. He said, it's just wildly inefficient the way that we spend the time to educate the kids. And I do think about a lot of that when I see the way that this stuff is being taught.
They're just trying to fill the day.
Super inefficient, right? Yeah. I'm big, and I'm sure you are too. We have a lot of things going on. You got young kids, I got kids. I'm big in my home studio. I've got my writing desk, I've got my radio seat, and then I've got my TV set up, all within a couple of feet of each other. In general, I don't want to, that's why I want a home studio. That's why you have this here.
Yeah.
We can work a lot. And it requires a lot of prep and everything else. But if I can synthesize it all the same place, hey, I can finish my show and I can go downstairs and I can be dad. I can turn that thing in like 10 minutes. And I think that so much of what we do in education is wildly inefficient. And imagine, and I used to think about this when I practiced law, the way you get paid in law is by the number of hours you work. If you got paid based on the efficiency that you work, lawyers would work 10% of the time, and the overall legal process would actually be just as efficient, right?
Yeah.
And so when you create an inefficient model and then you continue to layer on top of it, you get the United States government.
You get exactly
yeah, right?
that.
But it infuriates me.
You basically get these young kids who are brainwashed, who inherently have to do everything slower and less efficiently, and then also will be taught all of the craziness with race and sexuality.
Yeah, and by the way, was there a problem in teaching counting? Were we failing to teach counting? Like I don't know the basic math of how to count.
But now when you see why the teachers union loved the Democrats, it's like it does kind of.
But a lot of it just feels to me like an effort to try to fill up a 7-hour day.
Just how about sending them out to the freaking monkey bars?
Just let them learn.
I just send those kids to the backyard. And I'm like, we'll see what happens.
That's right.
And they're thriving. All right, let's jump over to the other the crazy story of the week that I think is going to have repercussions that we're just completely unaware of at this point. This is this P. Diddy story. Let me start with a quote from the Daily Wire. The U.S. Justice Department unsealed charges against Combs on Tuesday that alleged he abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. Prosecutors said that Combs, that's P. Diddy, that's his real name, carried out his scheme by relying on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Prosecutors say that in times relevant to the indictment, Combs engaged in persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. The abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. Prosecutors say that Diddy engaged in lengthy sex parties, referred to as freak-offs, that could last days, in which he or his associates lured women in under the guise of interest of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, or coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers during the events, prosecutors said. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. There was heavy drug use at these freak-offs, which Combs allegedly recorded sometimes without the women knowing. So I think a lot of people are hearing this stuff. It's like, oh, this is just some more weird celebrity stuff, and we hear a lot about these things. However, suddenly now a bunch of big-time musicians have deleted Twitter accounts. Usher's Twitter account has disappeared. Pink's, and it sounds like there were just tons and tons of people there. The whole thing sounds like a honeypot. I mean, what do you make of what's going on here?
It feels to me Epstein-esque, right? In that there was videos being made of sex acts that may have been used for blackmail going forward. And the fact that he has not been able to get out on bail, I mean, I think his lawyers offered to post $50 million, which is an unheard of number. And I still think we don't talk enough about the Epstein suicide. I mean, this is a guy who was on a suicide watch, theoretically.
The cameras weren't working that day.
Cameras didn't work. Somebody fell asleep. Come on. I mean, if I actually think, and I said this on the radio show the other day, I think Diddy's going to get killed. Like, maybe they'll attribute it to suicide, but when they don't let him out on bail and they're keeping him there, and there have to be in the same way that
why bother even killing him at this point if you've got all the tapes? Because it sounds like they had hundreds of cameras in the house. So now you've got all of these celebrities lined up, possibly with underage kids. You can figure out what the blackmail and probably money laundering and all sorts of crazy stuff. Why even bother killing him? Now we're obviously just completely
but I mean, I think it's because there's people in positions of power that do not want that to come out. We don't even know who the people were at these parties. I mean, you got an indication based on people just deleting all of their past history. We never knew what happened. The Epstein list has never come out. You know, I don't think there's any doubt, in my opinion, that Epstein was doing a lot of work potentially for intelligence agencies, that he had a lot of people in incredible positions of power in compromising positions, and they decided we can't have any of this ever come out. I think the same thing's going to be true of Diddy.
Right. So the question with Diddy, I guess, is where are these tapes now, right? Because you could still, in a weird way, it doesn't matter if Diddy is alive or not if you have the evidence. But let me just jump over to this Usher situation. This is from Mario Nafwal. Usher deletes posts after Diddy party comments resurface. Following Sean Diddy Combs' arrest for allegedly sex trafficking and racketeering, Usher's 2016 interview with Howard Stern resurfaced. In it, he admitted to attending Diddy's parties when he was just 13 years old. He said Diddy introduced him to a totally different set of stuff, sex specifically. Usher had over 7,100 posts on his X page before he deleted them all. You know, there's also a video, we almost threw it in, of Justin Bieber talking to, did you see that? Justin Bieber and talking to Diddy, saying that he used to go to his parties, and Diddy being like, why don't you come anymore? It sounds like Bieber had some stuff in some lyrics, I guess, from years ago that was a little weird. So it's just gross. I don't even know what to make of it.
On my way here to your studio, there's a video up of LeBron bragging about how nobody threw parties as good as Diddy.
Oh man.
And
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So you think about how many young people, in particular, Bieber, Usher, but LeBron was 18 when he became famous. I'm sure he met Diddy, and Diddy was throwing parties, and LeBron and everything else. I think the number of people that are involved in this universe is massive. There's been a lot of talk about Will Smith and whether he's involved. And I mean, it's all the reality of it is he crossed so many different universes that basically, if you were famous in the 90s or the early 2000s, you probably crossed paths at some point with Diddy. And so I think it's Epstein-like, and I just think there's going to be so many powerful people that are caught up in this that they're not going to want it to go public. Some of those guys, by the way, I mean, if Usher was 13 and Diddy was taking him to sex parties, I mean, he's a victim, right? Like,
but
that's
the fact
child
that he
abuse.
was talking about it on Howard Stern, and Bieber, this tape years ago, it's like, it's so weird.
I think it speaks. I mean, you got kids now. I mean, I got a 14-year-old. I got a 16-year-old. The idea that, I mean, first of all, remember Bieber got found on YouTube.
Yeah, well, apparently, but my guy said this to me right before. Usher actually discovered Bieber
on YouTube.
So there's
weird connections there.
Man, you've been to a couple of my parties. Just to be clear, have you ever seen a bottle of baby oil at any of my parties? There's tequila.
Not 1,000 of them, and 800 dildos. I think. I mean, you're talking about some crazy stuff. How about the fact that they were IVing people, like so they could continue in the sex parties? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I might give you 5 good minutes occasionally, but I'm like,
I'm getting too old for that.
The idea of a 24-hour sex party, I mean, like, that sounds, fucking awful to me. I'm like, can I just go watch a football game? I mean, I'm done here.
Some of the other names I'm being told right now apparently connected to this stuff. It's Jennifer Lopez, Khloe Kardashian, Ashton Kutcher. I don't know. It's just a big mess. However, instead of leaving on dildos, I think we should leave on Clay is here in Miami.
That's right.
Doing some advertising stuff with Buck. And Buck, you won the bet with Buck.
That's right.
I love this because in my little Florida group chat that I'm in with Buck, I was also saying Biden is toast.
I told him,
he's out.
started about 2 years ago, there's no way that Biden is going to be able to be the nominee.
Yeah, so that was my position all along. You made a bet with Buck on this. You won because obviously they booted. What was the actual bet? It was just for a steak?
Just a steak dinner. Over whether, because Buck was convinced, he said, like, and he may end up being right on the math on this. We'll see in 6 weeks. But his conviction was that Kamala in the battleground states is actually going to be far less of a popular selection for old white voters than Biden would be. And so he just refused to believe they would give up the power of incumbency and force Biden out. It's a long-running discussion we've had on the show. He had to pay off.
Nonetheless, Buck Sexton is a man of his word. He lost the bet because Biden's out, Kamala's in, and I'm pretty sure on this meal that we're about to cold close you with that he dropped at least $2K on this thing.
I think that's a good bet.
All right, good to see you, man.
Hey, good to see you, my man. It's a lot of fun. Keep up the good work, by the way, and congrats on all this.
Hey, why not? All right, let's go.
It's a crazy world.